Hey guys, Angie from Essential Infusions here. I'm here with John Fischetti, one of our favorite friends here to just educate us on supplements and why they're so important and how they can help us in so many different areas of our life. Welcome, John. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here. Excited.
Our goal at Essential Infusions is really to help you thrive and to really optimize your life, really to help you function well, prevent disease processes, and really to get to the root cause of some of the issues you have going on. And I can tell you one of the biggest things that I hear complaints about is stress. And I think that goes for everybody. I don't know anyone in this life who is not stressed. So much of our life has been made to be more efficient. Well, now we're so efficient that we really don't have a shut off key. We can't ever shut it down. We can't ever take a break. We don't walk away from our phones or we start to hyperventilate because we need to be near that because we're attached to everything in the world. And that has some really serious side effects on us. So stress is really something I think that's just terrible. A disease for our generation and the generations coming after us even more so. They just are so tired but wired, and they just struggle so much with all of that. So let's talk about a little bit about why Orthomoleculars offers high quality supplements, why they are so high quality, and then we'll go into what we recommend for stress.
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me. It was a pleasure. And yeah, so I guess to start, orthomolecular products, to those of you that are not interested, or I'm sorry, not familiar with orthomolecular products, rather, we're a clinical-based company. So we're a manufacturer of supplementation used in clinical space. And why that is so important is when you go to buy a product, the most expensive product is the one that didn't work. Mm-hmm. And so that's something we say often. And we are very sticklers when it comes to finding researched raw material that's been proven to show efficacy or show improvement in human clinical trials. And then when we find that raw material, we go out, we seek it out, we get it, we put it into our products, and we execute a formula by putting it in at the dosing that was used in the research. That is hard for a consumer to fathom, that not everyone's doing that. But the reality is when you pull up a retail product, often they reference some research somewhere that's been done or shown to, but there is differences in the raw material that was tested and one that you buy from somebody else. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the most important thing they can do is at least put it in there at a therapeutic dose. Mm-hmm. And we've seen things come down to all the way as minimal as 1/8 of the therapeutic dosing that's used, which means you probably have to use about half that bottle to get close to the therapeutic dosing, which means you're ordering multiple bottles. And then we won't even talk about the quality and meeting label claim and everything else that comes behind the scenes. But we put a lot of work and effort into making sure what you pay for is what you get. And then you'll either see a lab value move or you will feel better.
Mm-hmm. And these are all by prescription only. So they're not something you can get at Walmart, Walgreens, anything like that. That's what one of the reasons I provide it as a service for my patients, because I really want them to have access to all of these high quality supplements that Orthomolecular offers. So that is one of the benefits of being one of our patients. We can offer that for you. But again, a couple of the biggest things I hear is like stress. They are tired, but they can't sleep. And then they're stressed all the time. They just feel anxious all the time. And that can just lead to so many different issues in their body and their mental status and everything. So what are some of the supplements you recommend for that?
Sure. Well, and a great book for anyone to look at, just to understand stress a little bit better, is Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. I've always heard about stress, always thought I was kind of even keeled. And then once I read this book, it kind of really shined a light on this. When we're stressed, it's going to be helpful for our patients to understand the body doesn't know the difference between stress and stress, right? I'm stressed out because someone's chasing me and attacking me. Well, the body's firing all the same signals versus I'm in my car and I just got a text and the car in front of me all of a sudden slams on the brakes and you feel that rush of adrenaline and everything else, same response, versus my phone rings and it's a loved one and I'm stressed about this conversation. The body can't tell the difference between these. So the challenge for us is to understand that we need to manage those, obviously from a lifestyle perspective, but when things really get out of whack and we start to notice we have no energy, our hair's falling out, we got GI issues, cardiometabolic issues, really our body is just kind of falling apart. We need to figure out how to manage stress. So the best thing I can say about this is stress puts everything that's normal as far as a normal functioning kind of in a backseat. So the way you digest food, breathing, which affects your cardiovascular, your lungs, the amount of oxygen you get in, everything falls apart. So our goal is typically to try to look at how do we manage the stress response then? If our body can't tell the difference, how do we help it understand that we're okay, right? And we don't need the same reaction to getting chased by a lion as maybe our day in, day out worry of our kids and our future and et cetera. So the biggest thing that we like to focus on is cortisol. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of cortisol. It's one of those things that where we think of it spikes in the morning and then it kind of lowers as the day goes. And really, you should see melatonin, serotonin kind of as an opposite track record for this. But it's not a linear line, right? Because when that phone rings, my cortisol spikes. When that car in front of me slams their brake, my cortisol spikes. And so these spike patterns happen throughout the day. And what we need to figure out is how do we get at least down towards the end of the day when it's time to sleep, which is one of the biggest things disrupted by stress. How do we get that to be at a good low level so we're not waking up in the middle of the night or having trouble falling asleep? And so throughout the day, we can use things like adaptogens. One of them being from us is called adrenal, because your adrenals, which are attached to your kidneys, actually release cortisol. So we're targeting those guys to say, hey, can we maybe lessen the amount of cortisol, or can we increase the amount of cortisol that's around? Because as we get stressed out, our body actually is able to produce less of it. We've talked about that in the past. If we don't have the things to make things and we get stressed, our body uses up all of our resources, and now we can't even make cortisol, which can be beneficial. But we won't get into that today. So adrenal is an adaptogen blend, things that you'll have heard about before that are going to help balance cortisol. Everything in our body, we've talked about inflammation balancing. We're always trying to balance and have a normal response throughout the day, right? And adrenal is one of those things that can help us get there and help us feel like, hey, I've bottomed out, I have nothing less. Well, now we can maybe keep a little bit more of a balance, healthy amount of cortisol around. And now our energy levels are going to be a little bit more sustained. It can help you get through the day. The other aspect of that is looking at these things called neurotransmitters. These are the ones where help you feel more anxious. And that would be something like if you're looking at serotonin, if you're looking at dopamine, GABA, those neurotransmitter inhibitors are all good to help us feel less anxious, right? They kind of create a ceiling for that anxious wall. And so we can kind of come down and not feel these short spikes throughout the day of anxiety. Serenity, with a C, is actually the next product that we talk about in that regard. It helps replenish a lot of those neurotransmitter inhibitors that we really start to lose as we get stressed out. So that product is going to help anyone that's feeling anxious, having bouts of anxiety, things of that nature. On the tail end, sleep. If we're not sleeping well, we're not refueling, we're not refreshing, kind of hitting the restart button, that stress is just going to linger and it's going to get worse. So Serenity is our product for anxiety. Serenity PM really helps to balance both the cortisol aspect that adrenal does and the what we call neurotransmitter inhibitors like GABA, serotonin, etc., all into one product. And that's going to help you sleep better, feel well rested, but also not feel groggy when you wake up. Like sometimes we do if we take something like too much melatonin, etc.
Yeah, super important. You got to be able to function the next day.
Right.
There's so much with stress related to, there's different coping mechanisms we can use as well, but these are great ways to add to it. You know, grounding. I tell people to get in the light of day first thing in the morning, decreasing caffeine, breathing exercises, exercise in moderation. You know, if you exercise too much, you can throw yourself into that. Your body doesn't know that the exercise stress is supposed to be good stress. And so that can be too much as well. But so many of us have problems sleeping at night. And a lot of it is, okay, what are you doing? Is there a TV in your room? Are you eating before you go to bed? Turn off your phone, get it away from you. But these also help aid in all of that and just help balance things out internally. Because sometimes we can do all the right things externally and still have problems with all that. So this is super helpful for probably every single person on earth who's stressed, which is probably every single person I know, because it's just so challenging. Not many of us live in this world where we can just relax, really, really relax to a point where they're able to de-stress. And like you said, sleep's so important for your brain to dump everything that's happened to you during the day. And if you're not sleeping well, you're not able to dump, and then you just carry that on to the next day, and it just adds more and more into your stress level. So it's really important. Stress is hard to deal with.
Unfortunately, yeah, and stress makes everything else worse in the body. And often, you can go to the doctor and you can go to Angie and say, "Hey, my cardiometabolic markers are way off. My cholesterol's through the roof. My blood sugar is all out of whack." And it's going to be really hard sometimes to balance these things if we don't work on the stress at the end of the day. And
Mhm.
like we always say, supplements by definition are add to all of those lifestyle components. Even just adopting one of them, just trying one, the breathing patterns, turning off the phone and the TV before you go to bed at night. So many studies have been shown that if you just adopt one of those lifestyle changes and practice it every day, your stress comes down substantially.
Yeah, yeah. And who can't use that in their life? I think pretty much everybody. So
Absolutely.
these are great, and there's so many more resources you have there. So we'll have you back on again soon, and we will talk soon. But thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.